Sisu, otherwise known as John Wick, circa 1944. Okay, you guys, I went to go see Sisu today. First showtime they had, I think it was 3, which is kind of early for a Thursday preview. Anyway, I first found out about this film, I don't know, a couple months back, month or so. It hasn't been terribly long. Saw the trailer, was intrigued, looked like something that would be right up my alley. So as soon as the ticket went on sale in my area, I bought one. Went to go see it today. As I said, that's the whole reason for this review. And I have mixed feelings about it, which hopefully I'll be able to explain further as I go on in my own convoluted way. So the premise of the story is this guy, oh gosh, I forgot his name. I thought his name was going to be Sisu. No, that's not it. Sisu is just supposed to be this Finnish word that they claim is, there's no English equivalent to the word or something like that, but I don't know how accurate that is because there's different ways that this characteristic or whatever can be defined in English. I've seen it defined as stoic determination, white-knuckled courage in the face of overwhelming odds, that sort of thing. So that's what it means. And of course, this movie is all about that with regard to this guy, that characteristic ingrained in this guy. Like I said, I don't remember his name, but it starts off, it's the end of the war, or towards the end of the war. It's 1944 in Finland. The Nazis are being pushed out, and they basically adopted this scorched earth policy. So they're just like destroying everything as they leave the country. And this dude, you don't know who he is, but he's digging, and he's digging for gold. He's mining for gold. He finds gold. He's very, very happy about that, as most people would be, right? And he runs across some Nazis, and Nazis, much like communists, they decide that they want to take this for themselves, that sort of demented ideology type that is very common between the two. To me, they're basically both the same. Anyway, they decide they want it for themselves. And this entire movie revolves around basically this battle between him and this group of Nazis who have decided that they want what is his. I'll try to avoid too many spoilers, but pretty much what the film is about is what you saw in the trailer. The trailer shows a lot of stuff, and in general, this movie is pretty enjoyable. It's very efficient. It's only about an hour and a half, give or take a minute or two. There's not really a lot of fat on it, and it tells you this very simple story without a ton of dialogue and without a lot of extra fluff. This guy who plays the main character, he only speaks once in this film. I thought he was going to go the entire movie and not utter one word, but he does end up saying something. I won't tell you what it is. It was a little bit humorous, but honestly, he didn't need to talk. Words weren't necessary to tell this story that was told. So, things I really enjoyed about this. The cinematography, I really liked. I love the color. I loved the different camera angles that they had. There's a shot that I really enjoyed, and it'll show it here somewhere. It's his face or part of his face in the forefront, and behind him is one of the Nazis. I thought that was just a really interesting shot. It's not something that's super unique, but I really liked how they did it. No real issues as far as technical aspects of this film. It was edited well. The action was really good. The acting was fine. Everybody did fine. So all of those things are pros. It's broken up into chapters, and something interesting that they did as the story progressed, the chapter titles got more and more banged up, which was reflective of the condition of this character. As the movie went on, he got more and more banged up. So that was kind of cool. Something that surprised me was that this film was in English. I truly thought it was going to be in Finnish or German, or a mixture of both. And it's not really, it's primarily in English. Well, with regard to the Nazis. So the Nazis, when they're on screen, they all speak in English. That surprised me a little bit. Not that, I mean, why should it? Honestly, it shouldn't. But I thought this was a foreign language film. I don't know the people that worked on it. I only know the studio that was behind it, which I'll touch on later. That's the shot. See, I just like that. I thought that was really cool. Anyway, it did surprise me that we had these Nazis speaking in English, but whatever, it's fine. No real complaint, just an observation. I was not expecting that. There are some moments where Russian is spoken, so that just left me wondering, why were the Nazis speaking English anyway? Whatever. Another thing, that scene right there reminded me of Wonder Woman. And I wondered if that was intentional. I don't know. I love that scene with her in No Man's Land. Okay, getting back to, boy, the brutality and gore in here was extraordinarily painful looking, very realistic, very bloody, very violent, unapologetically violent. There are some scenes in here that, I kid you not, certain bodily harm and damage, and I was literally cringing and wincing. At one point I was even like, oh, I couldn't look at it because just the thought of it. So it gets you there for sure. And very well done as far as that went. I'm referring to the realism. You know, I don't necessarily revel in extreme depictions of violence. I would rather watch a violent, action-packed movie than a chick flick, but that doesn't necessarily mean, you know, for the longest time I thought that was the brim of a hat, and that's a knife. I just now realized that. Okay. What was I saying? Oh, I was saying, despite the fact that I would rather watch a violent, action-packed movie as opposed to a chick flick, that doesn't mean that I enjoy depictions of extreme violence. Sometimes they're over the top and crazy and they make me laugh, like with Tucker and Dale. But boy, this was done in a really effective way because it literally made me cringe. It wasn't as disturbing as what was depicted in Bone Tomahawk, so it didn't go there, but it was really brutal. It was really very convincing and painful to look at it. And I guess that's about it as far as some of the pros. You know, I've touched on pretty much everything. Fun, efficient, fast-paced, not a lot of fat, well acted, beautiful cinematography, the score was fine, all of that. And now I'm going to tie back around to what I mentioned at the very beginning. And I'm not the only person who has noticed this, because I saw other people online mentioning it, other reviewers bringing this into the discussion. And once I found out the studio behind this production, it all made sense as to why this felt so much like a doggone John Wick film. The studio that brought us John Wick is the one that brought us Sisu. And that's where this movie enters con territory. I enjoyed this in general, yes, but then it got to a certain point, and there were different things that he endured that, you know, I could see that he could have survived some of them, because some people have lived through horrendous injury, physical damage, bodily damage, and have still been able to go along, to live, and to even to live through those injuries, and even to do crazy, miraculous things. I mean, we've heard stories of some of the crazy things that people have been able to do even while injured. So I could buy into that part of it for a bit. And then stuff that was going on at the very end involving an airplane, the beginning part, and specifically the beginning part involving the plane, the big plane, and then the ending part involving the plane, and some stuff that went on in there was just I could not continue to suspend my disbelief. Now, we were told in this story that this guy here, he's legendary throughout Finland because he's killed all these Russians. He's so tough, he's basically unkillable. I guess, it's trying to paint this image of invincibility in your mind about him, but at the same time, he's still supposed to be human. He's not supernatural. He's not a superhero. And so the stuff that he lived through in here, much like with my issues about John Wick 4, there is just no way in the world that he could have lived through some of the stuff that went down with him. So when it entered into that territory, I did start rolling my eyes. I was just like, oh. And I was singing to myself, this feels like John Wick 4. And then I see people mentioning John Wick. And then I was going back and looking at the trailer again to get screenshots, screen grabs for this review, and in big bold letters, from the studio behind John Wick. And I said to myself, self, that's why this felt like a freaking John Wick movie. In this case, that's not a pro. That's a con. Because I was hoping this would be a little bit more grounded in reality than it ended up being in some parts. And that's why in my Letterboxd review for this, I had to knock off about a half star. It's not as insane as John Wick 4, but it's pretty close in a lot of ways. The action isn't completely nonstop, which I did like. The flow, it felt like it went really well, and the action felt like it was balanced with the downtime in a really good way. I wasn't bored with the action, like how I was with John Wick 4. I specifically mentioned when the action started in John Wick 4, to me, that was its weakest point. That was when I was, okay, let me know when it's over. I didn't feel like that with this, but if the film had gone on much longer, I would have felt that way. So even though there was too much suspension of disbelief that was asked of me, and I had moments where I was rolling my eyes, literally rolling my eyes, it was still, to me, a more enjoyable, less frustrating experience than John Wick 4. So not quite as bad, didn't go as crazy over the top, but it still went a little bit too much for me. But if you love John Wick, if you love over the top gore and fighting and action scenes and stuff like that, I think you will enjoy this movie. It's got a limited release right now. I thought it was going to be nationwide, and I kept waiting and waiting and waiting for the tickets to become available, and finally they did. Less than a week before the movie was supposed to release, in the official release date. And then I found out the official release date is, I guess, just for limited release. I don't know if this is going to get a wide release, so I have no clue if anybody here, if you're interested in watching it, if it's even going to be in your area. Just, I guess, check around if you'd like to see it. I do feel like it's worth watching on the big screen for the cinematography alone. And other than that, I really don't have a ton to say about it. It was enjoyable. I'm not sure if I'll watch it again. Maybe one day if it's on, I'll watch it again. But it's nothing that I'm going to go out of my way to rewatch. Anyway, I don't have anything else. Pretty short and simple review. And so I'm going to go ahead and pull the plug on this one, you guys. Adios.